That rusty adjustable wrench lying in the bottom of a coffee can in your garage. The one you keep meaning to haul out to the scrap trailer. One just like it sold for $1,100. Rust and all, jaw stiff as a frozen gate hinge. So today we are going through 10 rusty tools hiding in garages and barns right this minute that are worth a great deal more than anybody ever bothered to tell you. And it would be a fair bet that one of them is within 10 feet of where you are standing. Before we get rolling, drop a comment below and tell us where in the world you are watching from. Iowa, Alabama, Scotland, it does not matter. Everyone gets read and everyone gets answered. And stick with us to number 4, because that is the one that fools people who ought to know better. Now let us walk something back first, because trust is worth more than enthusiasm. Most rusty tools are just rusty tools. You can dump out a 5-gallon bucket of old iron and come away with nothing but sore hands. Out of a full bucket, maybe 1 thing in 50 is worth a second look, and 1 in 300 is worth real money. Those are the actual odds, and anybody telling you different is selling you something. But these 10 are the exceptions. These are the ones where the difference between $2 and $2,000 comes down to a stamp the size of your thumbnail, which is exactly why they end up in the bin. Here is why the old ones beat the new ones, and it is not nostalgia talking. Before the Second World War, tools would drop forged out of thicker steel, because a man expected to use the same tool his whole life, and then hand it to his son. There was no such thing as a throwaway hammer. Then the scrap drives came through in the 40s and cleaned out the barns. Anything with iron in it went to the war effort, and whole generations of hand tools disappeared into ship plate. What survived is scarce by accident, not by design. Keep that in mind because it explains almost everything on this list. Right, number 10. Number 10 is the adjustable wrench. The crescent wrench, most people call them. Sliding jaw, that little knurled worm gear sitting in the throat. Every house in America has one rolling around a drawer with the dead batteries. Adjustable wrenches built before about 1960 used a heavier, denser steel than what is sold in the checkout aisle today. Manufacturers shaved that down decade by decade. The old ones were built to outlast the man who bought them, and a good many of them did. But the wrench itself is not what carries the value. It is the marking on the jaw. Flip yours over and look for a patent date stamped near the base of the fixed jaw. Anything reading back into the 20s or 30s pushes the number up hard. At an estate sale outside Ottumwa, Iowa, somebody gave $2 for a coffee can of loose hardware. Bent nails, tap washers, and one little 4-inch adjustable so crusty the jaw would not budge. Enough grime came off to read it. And there was an early Crescent Tool Company patent stamp, Jamestown, New York. It was listed exactly as found. It brought $1,100. Now that is the high end of the high end. Your ordinary old adjustable is a $30 to $80 wrench, and it is worth saying that plainly. 3 things to check. First, the jaw stamp. Second, does the worm gear still turn? Rust on the outside is fine. Rust seized into the threads is not. Third, look at the handle where it meets the head for hairline cracks. Crescent sits on top for names, but watch for Diamond Calc Horseshoe out of Duluth and J.H. Williams as well. Both get walked past because the names do not ring a bell, and size works backwards on these. A tiny 4-inch is rarer than a 12. Now number 9, and people walk right past this one at flea markets constantly. Number 9 hardly looks like a tool at all. It is the hand crank tabletop drill press, not the big floor model. The little benchtop one with a cast iron base, a small crank wheel, and a chuck barely thicker than your finger. These went out to jewelers and hobby men in the early 1900s for work too fine for a brace and bit. Most got fed to the scrap drives because a small cast iron thing sitting on a bench was an easy grab for a collection crew. What survived? Survived by luck. One came out of a chicken house loft near Galena, Illinois, under half an inch of dust and worse. A good old Pratt out of Greenfield, Massachusetts. Original crank wheel, everything turning. It sold to a fellow who collects nothing but bench tools. $280. Check the base for cracks first, because cast iron is strong but brittle, and these got dropped. Second, spin the chuck by hand and feel for grinding. Third, look underneath for maker stamp. Goodell Pratt, Miller's Falls, and Champion Blower and Forge all built versions. Bigger is better here since most were built small on purpose. And watch for a replaced crank. A modern handle bolted on knocks the value in half. Quick pause. If you are getting something out of this, hit subscribe, because there is a new one every week, and the next find might be the twin of something sitting in your own shed. Number 8 is the brace. That big wooden crank drill shaped like a sideways letter Z, the one you turn with your whole arm. Folks see Granddad's antique. Pretty on a wall, worth nothing. And that assumption is exactly why good ones slide through farm sales for pocket change. It is not age that decides the money. It is the chuck. The earliest braces used a plain square socket that would only take square shank bits. Later designs added a spring-loaded jaw that could grab a round shank as well. And that one mechanical change is the whole ball game for collectors. A Spofford pattern brace, the split-head kind with the pinch bolt, sold for $240 a good while back, and that felt like a result. Then in a sale barn in Des Moines, a complete English ultimatum came across the block. Brass-framed ebony head, and it went to a phone bidder at right around $1,400. That is the exceptional end, mind. Your everyday farm brace is a $15 to $40 tool. Check 3 things. First, the chuck style. Square is older and usually better. Second, the head, that round knob you press against your palm, and whether the wood is original. Third, the sweep, which is how wide an arc the crank travels. Look for a stamp near the chuck or along the arc. Names to watch are Spofford, Barber, and anything marked ultimatum. One more thing everybody misses. Try to unscrew that head knob. Some of them hide a storage compartment inside, and a brace with its original bit still in there can bring double an empty one. Numbers 7 and 6 go together, because once one clicks, the other does too. First, the bench vise. Not the big shop vise bolted to a bench top. The little clamp-on kind that's screwed to the edge of a woodworker's table. Most people see rust and flaking paint and reckon it is scrap iron. A fellow outside Baraboo, Wisconsin, traded a box of shop junk he wanted gone for a truck battery. Bottom of the box was a clamp on machinist vise. Athol Machine Company. Swivel base intact, jaws barely worn. Sold inside a week for $260 on a battery. Check the jaws first, then the swivel base and its lock lever, because that is what buyers actually want. Rust on the outside means nothing if the mechanism runs smooth. Look for the maker cast into the base. Athol, Parker, and Reed are worth chasing. Skip a cracked jaw plate, because that kills it no matter whose name is on it. Now number 6, the block plane. Little cousin to the full-size hand plane. Size to fit one palm. Size works backwards here as well. The smallest ones, barely 3 inches long, are scarcer, because fewer got made, and even fewer stayed found. One turned up for $1 in a tin full of fishing sinkers at a Sunday yard sale in Grinnell, Iowa. Low-angle Stanley early type, blade never ground away. $315 through a specialty forum. Check the blade angle first. Low-angle versions handle nasty grain and buyers know it. Check the sole for flatness next, because a warped sole tanks the price no matter how pretty the rest of it is. Last, the adjustment knob on the tail. Originals are black or dark rosewood, and a bright mismatched knob tells you parts have been swapped. 4 down, 6 to go. And number 5 is the one a small-town newspaper wrote about. Number 5 is a plain hand saw, specifically a Distan, the kind with a decorative brass medallion set into the applewood handle. People see a pitted blade and pitch the whole thing. And that is the mistake dealers count on. Flip the handle over and study that medallion. Distan changed the design a little almost every decade. The eagle, the keystone, the lettering. Those changes are a fingerprint, and you can date the saw by them. And a snapped blade matters less than you would think, because some buyers want the handle alone. At an estate clearance in Vinton, Iowa, a saw hanging on the wall held a broken number 12 Distan. Blade cracked halfway across, handle black with dust. The family had it in the burn pile. That handle and medallion dated to the 1870s. It brought $640 at auction, and the county paper ran a little story about it. Complete early ones have pushed past $900. Check the medallion pattern first for your rough decade. Handle wood second. Apple and beech are common, walnut is rare and worth more. Blade etching third, since those faded fast, and a readable one adds real money. Number 4 is the one mentioned at the start. The one that fools people, the wooden level, not the aluminium thing from the hardware store. The old solid wood kind, with brass fittings and a glass vial. It is easy to spend years assuming the wood is the story. It is not. The brass is. Heavy brass plates running the full length of the edges. What they call a brass-bound level. That is the difference between a $20 level and a $1,000 one. One came out of a hog barn outside Cedar Rapids, wrapped in a rotted feed sack. On a shelf above the gate, solid mahogany body, brass plates down both edges, and a stamp near the end reading Stratton Brothers, Greenfield, Massachusetts. It looked like a decorator piece. It sold to a collector for $1,100. Stratton Brothers sits near the top, along with Stanley's early brass-bound line and the Davis Level and Tool Company. Check the ends for a stamped name first, vial second, and do not panic over a cracked vial, because replacements exist and buyers forgive it. What kills the price is a warped or split wood body. because you cannot fix that without destroying the piece. Number 3 might be closer to your front door than your garage. It is the plumb bob, that little brass or steel cone that hangs on a string to find dead vertical. Most folks find one tangled in a toolbox, reckon it is an odd fishing weight, and into the junk drawer it goes. Old bobs, especially solid brass ones with a removable tip, carry serious weight with buyers. That removable tip is the whole thing. It let a carpenter swap in a fresh point when the old one wore blunt, and almost every one of those spares got lost. A bob that still has its spare tip jumps in price. A machinist's roll-top chest went through a sale in Moline, Illinois, bought mostly for the chest. Bottom drawer had 3 bobs tangled in old line. 2 were plain steel, maybe $15 a piece. The third was solid brass, stamped Starrett along the base, spare point still threaded into the body. That one brought $440. Check the base for a name first. Starrett tops the list, then Stanley and Miller's falls. Twist the bottom point gently and see if it wants to unscrew. And weigh it in your palm, because solid brass feels heavier than plated steel. And that alone sorts your pile before you find a stamp. Do not throw out the string either. Original braided cord matters to purists chasing an untouched set. Number 2 hides in plain sight better than anything else on this list. It is the wooden folding ruler, not a tape measure, the kind that unfolds section by section on little brass joints. Everybody assumes the boxwood is the valuable part. Wrong. It is the brass extension slide, that skinny hidden ruler that pulls out of one end for measuring depth in a mortise. On nearly every survivor, that slide either snapped off or corroded solid somewhere around the 1950s. The ones where it still runs free are what buyers hunt. $6 bought a retired carpenter's nail apron and a box of small tools at a sale in Fremont, Nebraska. In the apron pocket, worn shiny from 40 years in a man's hand, was a Stanley No. 68 boxwood brass bound, and that slide moved like it had been oiled that morning. $290, all of it on account of that slide working. Ordinary folding rules run $10 to $30, so nobody should go quitting their job over it. But check that slide. One tool left, and there is almost certainly one within arm's reach of your workbench. Number 1 is the most overlooked tool on this whole list, the claw hammer, the plain kind, sitting in nearly every garage in the country. It is not about the head, it is about the handle wood. Old hammers used hickory almost without exception, and hickory that has been seasoning 80 or 90 years has a grain and a density that new hickory simply does not have. Put that together with a clean maker stamp forged into the steel, and a $2 yard sale tool turns into something else. At a farm sale near Waterloo, $5 bought a nail keg with a dozen hammers in it. One was a hickory-handled plum that brought $80 on its own, but underneath sat an early Estwing, the solid steel kind, forged in one piece, head and handle together, out of Rockford, Illinois. That one went to a collector for $730. Again, early production, top of the market. Most old hammers are a $20 to $60 tool. Check the head for a stamp first. Estwing on top, Stanley and Plum right behind. Check the handle for tight, straight grain, and no cracks running the length. And check the claw because one rounded smooth from 50 years of pulling nails reads as honest history to a buyer, so long as there is no chip or break in it. Now the other half of the truth, because nobody should be misled here. Condition decides everything. Surface rust is fine and can even help, but rust that has seized a mechanism solid takes a tool out of the running entirely. Cracked castings are scrap, full stop, and whatever you do not overclean it. Somebody can take a wire wheel to a $200 plane and turn it into a $40 plane in 90 seconds. That dark patina is the tool's proof of age, and once you buff it off, it never comes back. Wipe the dirt, read the stamp, leave the rest alone, and here is what bothers me about all of this. Nobody tells you any of it. There is a whole quiet business built on you not knowing. The scrapper who offers to clean out your late father's shop for free. The flipper who buys the entire garage sale at 7 in the morning for $200 cash and a smile. They are not counting on luck. They are counting on the fact that nobody ever taught you to turn the wrench over. That is not a crime. It is just information, and information only stays valuable while it is uneven. So even it up before that trailer pulls out of your driveway. Spend 20 minutes with a rag and a torch, because that is the whole idea behind this list. Value hides in plain sight, not behind glass in a museum, not in some exotic thing you have never heard of. In the ordinary, the wrench in the drawer, the hammer by the workbench, the saw leaning in the corner with cobwebs on it. 10 tools down, and there is good money to be bet that at least one of them is in your house right now, waiting on somebody to look twice. So go out to the garage tonight, flip over every handle, read every stamp, work every mechanism, before any of it goes in the bin. Then come back and tell us in the comments exactly what you found, and you will get an honest answer about what it is worth. Every single one gets read, however many there are. Next week, we are getting into old cast iron. The skillets and griddles folks scrub the value right off of.